Okay, so you want to run a private prison. Sounds like the dream, right? The state hands you a contract, they guarantee you a steady stream of inmates, you collect a daily rate per bed, and you sit back and watch the money roll in. It sounds like the ultimate recession-proof business. After all, crime never stops, and society will always need somewhere to put the people who break the rules. But here's what the promotional brochure doesn't show you. The riot that destroys 3 wings of your facility on a Tuesday night. The $1 million civil rights lawsuit filed by an inmate's family because your medical staff tried to save money on basic antibiotics. The sudden change in federal policy that cancels your primary contract overnight, leaving you holding a $100 million facility that cannot be repurposed for anything else. And the fact that your entire profitability depends on keeping humans locked in cages, which makes you a constant target for public relations, disasters, political protests, and institutional divestment. Private prisons represent one of the most controversial, misunderstood, and financially complex business models in modern corporate history. On the outside, it looks like a government-funded monopoly where your revenue is guaranteed. On the inside, it is a low-margin, labor-intensive real estate play where a single operational failure can consume your entire year of profit. By the end of this, you will understand exactly how the math of private incarceration works, why keeping beds filled is a matter of corporate survival, and why the smartest investors view these companies not as money printers, but as high-risk political gambles. To understand the economics of this industry, we have to start with what a private prison actually is. Most people view a prison as a public correctional facility that happens to have a corporate logo on the door. That is not a private prison. A private prison is a specialized real estate leasing machine that monetizes inmate housing. Think of it like a hotel where the guests cannot leave, the room service is mandated by federal guidelines, and the primary bill is paid by the taxpayer. The raw material is the bed space. The product is the inmate day, which is one inmate housed for 24 hours. The modern private prison industry began in the 1980s, driven by a rapid increase in the inmate population due to the war on drugs. Governments simply could not build facilities fast enough to house the influx of prisoners. Two entrepreneurs, Thomas Beasley and Dr. Krantz, saw an opportunity. They founded the Corrections Corporation of America, now known as CoreCivic. They realized that if a private company could build and operate prisons faster and cheaper than the government, they could lease that space back to the state at a profit. Today, the industry is dominated by two massive players, CoreCivic and the GEO Group, which combined generate billions of dollars in annual revenue. So, how much does it cost to get in the game? This is where the first capital barrier opens. You might think the answer is a few $1 million and a secure fence. The real answer is that before you take a single prisoner, you have already spent between $80 and $150 million, depending on the security level of the facility you are building. The capital expenditure, or CAPEX, is staggering. A medium security facility for 1,500 inmates requires a massive footprint of specialized concrete, reinforced steel, electronic surveillance systems, guard towers, secure plumbing, kitchen facilities, medical bays, and administrative space. But unlike a commercial warehouse, you cannot start building on speculation. You cannot build a prison and then hope the state decides to use it. Before a single shovel hits the dirt, you need a signed contract. That contract is your lease. The state or federal government agrees to pay you a daily rate per inmate, known as a per diem, in exchange for you building and operating the facility. To secure that contract, you must navigate a bureaucratic maze that can take 2 to 4 years. You need state licensing, environmental impact approvals, local zoning clearance, and a detailed operating plan that complies with American Correctional Association standards. If you do not have $30 million of your own equity capital to put down and the creditworthiness to borrow the remaining $70 million, your project will never start. And that capital cannot be paid back quickly. If your contract is canceled in year 3 and you still owe $50 million to the bank, you are holding a highly specialized asset that cannot be turned into a shopping mall or an office building. The concrete walls are 5 feet thick, the rooms are small, steel boxes, and the plumbing is cast into the foundation. It is a prison, and it can only ever be a prison. Once the facility is open, the day-to-day math begins. A private prison's revenue is driven by a simple formula, the number of inmates multiplied by the daily per diem rate. The per diem rate varies depending on the state and the security level, but it typically ranges from $60 to $180 per inmate day. Let us use $100 as a baseline. If you run a facility with 1,500 inmates at a per diem of $100, your gross revenue is $150,000 per day. That is $54 million a year. It sounds like a massive cash flow, but now you have to look at the expenses, the operating costs, or OPEX, that run every single day. The largest cost by far is labor. Running a secure facility requires round-the-clock staffing. You need correctional officers, shift supervisors, medical personnel, cooks, maintenance crews, and administrators. Labor represents 60 to 70% of a prison's operating expenses. In a public prison, guards are typically unionized state employees with pensions, high benefit costs, and strict overtime rules. A private operator's primary profit engine is their ability to reduce these labor costs. They do this by hiring non-union staff, paying lower base wages, offering fewer benefits, and maintaining lower staff-to-inmate ratios than public facilities. While a public prison might maintain a ratio of 1 guard for every 5 inmates, a private facility might push that ratio to 1 guard for every 8 or 10 inmates. This labor compression is where your profit margin comes from. If you can save $10 per inmate day on labor compared to a state-run facility, you have generated $5 million in profit across a 1,500-bed prison. But this labor strategy comes with severe operational risks. Lower pay and fewer benefits lead to high staff turnover, which can exceed 80% annually in private facilities. New, inexperienced guards are constantly being hired, resulting in security lapses, increased violence, and higher rates of contraband. When guards quit, you have to pay remaining staff overtime to cover the shifts, which quickly eats into your labor savings. The second major OPEX item is inmate care, which includes food, clothing, laundry, and health care. Healthcare is a massive financial wildcard. Under the law, prisons must provide adequate medical care to inmates. If an inmate develops a chronic illness or requires emergency surgery, the bills can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Private operators manage this by outsourcing healthcare to specialized private contractors, capping their financial exposure but often leading to accusations of substandard care. Food is another area where margins are squeezed. State guidelines require a certain caloric intake, but private operators negotiate bulk supply contracts that allow them to feed an inmate for as little as $2 to $3 a day. Add property taxes, utility bills, liability insurance premiums, and routine facility maintenance, and the daily cost to run your 1,500-bed prison is roughly $120,000. That leaves you with $30,000 a day in operating profit, or about $11 million a year. Against a $100 million construction cost, that represents an 11% return on assets. But here is the catch that determines whether your prison makes money or goes bankrupt: the occupancy guarantee clause. In the hotel business, a 60% occupancy rate is considered a success. In the private prison business, a 60% occupancy rate is a financial disaster. Your fixed costs, the debt payments on the construction loan, the property taxes, the minimum utility bills, and the core management salaries, remain the same whether the prison is empty or full. If your occupancy drops from 90% to 60%, your daily revenue drops from $150,000 to $90,000. Your daily operating costs only drop to $110,000 because you need fewer guards on the shifts. You are now losing $20,000 a day. To prevent this, private operators write occupancy guarantees directly into their contracts with the state. These clauses, often called bed mandates, require the government to keep the prison at a minimum capacity, typically between 85 and 95%. If the state's crime rate drops and they do not have enough inmates to fill your beds, the taxpayer still has to pay you for the empty space. It is a business model where demand is legally guaranteed by contract. If the state wants to close beds, they must pay a penalty. This has created a massive incentive for private prison companies to lobby for policies that maintain high incarceration rates, such as 3 strikes laws, mandatory minimum sentences, and strict immigration enforcement. Lobbying is not just a political activity for these companies, it is a core business expense. CoreCivic and the GEO Group spend millions of dollars every year lobbying state legislatures and federal agencies to ensure that incarceration policies remain favorable to their business model. They do not lobby for higher crime. They lobby for policies that ensure arrested individuals remain detained rather than released on bail or placed in rehabilitation programs. But the revenue model does not stop with the per diem. Private operators have turned the prison population into a secondary consumer market. Inmates have access to a commissary, which is a private store within the facility where they can buy snacks, hygiene products, writing materials, and shoes. The operator controls the supply and charges significant markups on these goods. A bag of chips that costs 50 cents in a retail grocery store might cost $2 in the commissary. Then there are communication services. Inmates must pay to make phone calls or send electronic messages to their families. Private prison operators contract with specialized telecommunications providers who charge high rates per minute, sometimes up to $15 for a 15-minute call. The provider pays a commission back to the prison operator, which can be up to 50% of the call revenue. Inmate labor is another source of cost reduction. Inmates are employed to run the daily operations of the facility, cooking meals, cleaning laundry, maintaining the grounds, and performing clerical work. In exchange, they are paid a fraction of the minimum wage, often between 12 cents and $2 per hour. By using inmate labor for internal operations, the operator avoids hiring external staff at market wages, saving millions of dollars annually. Despite these multiple revenue streams and contract protections, the private prison business model faces a structural risk that is unique in the corporate world: political volatility. Your only customer is the government. If the political wind changes, your business can be dismantled overnight. In August of 2016, the Deputy Attorney General under the Obama administration issued a memo directing the federal government to phase out its use of private prisons. The announcement hit the stock prices of CoreCivic and the GEO Group like a physical blow, wiping out billions of dollars in market value in a single afternoon. Although the Trump administration reversed this memo in February of 2017, driving the stock prices back up, the volatility risk remained clear. In January of 2021, President Biden signed an executive order directing the Department of Justice not to renew contracts with privately operated criminal detention facilities. While this order did not apply to immigration detention facilities, which represent a significant portion of private prison revenue, it demonstrated how quickly a pen stroke in Washington can destroy a company's primary revenue stream. When federal contracts are canceled, operators must scramble to find state customers to take over the empty beds. If they cannot, they are left with empty facilities that continue to consume money in property taxes, insurance, and maintenance while generating zero revenue. This is the volatility trap. The costs of building and financing the prison are fixed for 30 years. The political contract that pays for it can be canceled in a day. Let us look at the final verdict. Let us do the math on a realistic scenario. You own a private prison company. You have built a medium security facility for $100 million. You have secured a state contract with a per diem rate of $100 per inmate day and a 90% occupancy guarantee. In the good scenario, the state maintains a high inmate population. Your facility runs at 95% capacity, housing 1,425 inmates. Your annual gross revenue is $52 million. Your operating expenses, driven by low wages and high inmate labor utilization, are $40 million. Your debt service on the construction loan is $6 million. Your net profit is $6 million. That is a 6% cash return on your assets, with the added benefit of land appreciation and tax depreciation write-offs. In the bad scenario, a new governor is elected on a platform of criminal justice reform. The state reduces its inmate population, and your contract is renegotiated to remove the occupancy guarantee. Your facility's population drops to 70% capacity, or 1,050 inmates. Your annual gross revenue drops to $38 million. Your operating expenses, despite staff cuts, only drop to $36 million because you still need minimum security coverage. Your debt service remains $6 million. You are now losing $4 million a year. In 2 years, you have consumed your cash reserves. In 3 years, you are renegotiating with your lenders. In 4 years, you are in bankruptcy court, trying to sell a concrete fortress to a county government that knows you have no other options. The private prison industry is a business that turns public policy into corporate cash flow. It is highly profitable when the contracts are secure and the beds are full. But it is an industry that runs on leverage, works on thin operational margins, and is entirely dependent on a customer that changes its mind every 4 years. If you do decide to enter this business, understand what you are actually buying. You are not buying a secure real estate investment. You are buying a political contract that requires a constant supply of human inventory to remain solvent. The moment the policy shifts, the math collapses faster than any prison door can close.